and welcome, friends. Tonight is our November Sarasota University Colloquium. I'm Dr. Lindsay Pollock, Provost at Sarasota University, and I'd like to welcome you to an amazing event tonight. But before I introduce our awesome guest speaker, I'd just like to remind everyone that Sarasota does offer bachelor's completion program in Montessori education, as long as master's degrees in Montessori education, Montessori leadership, and a doctor of education in Montessori education, as well as a doctoral completion program in Montessori education. So if you started a doctorate somewhere else, no matter how long ago, and it's your desire to finish that degree, we'd love to talk to you about coming to Sarasota and finishing up your doctorate. We have Ellen Lastinger here tonight, our Director of Admissions. Uh, and Ellen will be dropping in the chat our contact information. If you'd like to reach out, we'd love the opportunity to speak with you. And now it's my privilege to introduce our guest speaker this evening, Jeanne-Marie Paynel. Am I saying that correctly?
You are.
Excellent. Jeanne-Marie holds a master's in Montessori education. She has earned her diploma from AMI for birth to 6 years, and she's a certified positive discipline educator. I was speaking to someone this evening about Jeanne-Marie, and actually about the fact that you were going to be speaking for us this evening for our colloquium. And this person said, "Oh, I just love her. She just gives that uh, Maria Montessori vibe."
Oh,
And I thought, wow, now that's a high compliment.
that's a nice
Uh,
compliment. Yeah.
right, right. So I'm really looking forward to hearing all your wisdom and words of encouragement tonight, Jeanne-Marie. I'm a new grandma myself. My little guy is 10 months old.
Oh,
So I'm learning so much again about infants, and I'm really looking forward to hearing you speak. So thank you again for being here, and I'll turn it over to you. And for our participants, we do have a number of security measures in place to make sure that this is a pleasant experience for all of us. But the chat is turned on, so we'll be watching in the chat if you have comments as well. So now over to you, Jeanne-Marie.
well, thank you so much for welcoming me and sharing that little anecdote. That gave me shivers. So that's wonderful. So yes, I am Jeanne-Marie Paynel, and I am a Montessori guide that I found Montessori kind of later in life. I didn't start out being a Montessori guide. I was working in corporate, a graphic designer and such, and went back to school in my early 40s because I just wanted to learn more about children. And from my experience studying Montessori in depth in my master's, and also I did 3 to 6, the first course, and then I went back to do the birth to 3. The birth to 3 really opened up my eyes to the knowledge that we can be sharing to parents. I feel that as trained Montessori guides, we hold a wealth of information that parents should have, right? We have that privilege of understanding children, of being with children every day and observing, with amazement. But I feel that parents sometimes are left in the dark. And so I've kind of made it my mission that I want to share this information with parents. This is information I wish I had had as a young parent myself, right? I discovered Montessori pregnant of my first, but it's not until my second was already 4 years old that I went back to school to do my master's. And I realized, oh my gosh, if I had known a lot of this, right? So that's kind of what I've set out. And today's presentation is really about birth preparation and beyond, and using that Montessori knowledge as well. And I want to share with you what I learned in my Assistance to Infancy course is how to help parents prepare not only for birth but for parenting. And just one last little anecdote is that in our training, as a lot of you know, we are asked to do a lot of observation. And in the Assistance to Infancy, it's something like 250 hours of observation. And if we can, it would be wonderful to observe a birth. And it just so happened that I had a girlfriend who was birthing her second child and had decided to birth at home with a midwife. And she invited me in to care for her eldest child, who was 3 at the time. And that experience really kind of shifted my whole idea of birth and what birth could be like. I had had 2 hospital births, very different. And it just kind of snowballed into now being a private doula, birth and postpartum. I also volunteer at the hospital as a doula. I'm actually doing a course right now on the basic needs of babies. So I am full on those first few moments of life and such. So enough of that, and I will now share my screen. I've prepared a presentation, and please, those who are here, if you have any questions, I will try to go through this as quickly as I can so that we do have time for a Q&A at the end. So post them in the chat and we will get to those. Okay, so share. We did this earlier, so I know it works. Um, Share this one. Share. Okay, everybody can see. Perfect. So this is in my way. Okay, perfect. Nope. Do you see your screen on there? No.
We see your presentation. So
That's
I'm
all.
looking at
Okay.
a beautiful little baby
Okay,
and yep.
perfect. Perfect. Okay. So, welcome everybody. This presentation is called Montessori Insight, Birth Preparation and Beyond. So, preparing ourselves and our homes, because it has come to my kind of attention and being a little bit bewildered at how many parents will contact me to be their birth doula, and I realized that they know very little about birth and have very little knowledge of what it means to prepare to birth and to prepare to be a parent for the rest of your life. And so for me, I've, really put a lot of thought into how I can support these parents, and especially with the knowledge that I have of my Montessori training. So I want to share tonight some of that, but also what a kind of course that is, that has the Montessori mindset will look like, and what are the topics that we touch upon. So first, let me begin with one of my very favorite quotes from Dr. Maria Montessori, which is, "The child is truly a miraculous being, and this should be felt deeply by the educator." And here I always like to remind parents that the educator is the parent. The parent is the first educator of the child. And this should be taken very seriously, right? We are not only the educator, but we are the guide, right? We are here not as their servants, but as their guides. And for me, it's really, I feel like I owe so much to Dr. Montessori's teaching, her observation, and her research, which today we know is being proven through, the brain scans that she didn't have access to. All of that is being proven to really share with us how amazing these little beings are, and the importance of these first few days, first few weeks and months, and the first 6 years. So what does birth preparation and beyond look like? Like, what would be some of the topics that, I go through and that we really need to iron out? So first, we want to help parents know that they do have choices, that they get to birth how they want to, how they can imagine. Of course, if there are, no medical issues and so forth, but it's really important that they know that they have choices. We hear about the free birth, we hear about hospital births, cesareans, unmedicated, and so forth. And that just needs a little bit of education, right? I think we have this idea of birth of what we see in the movies, and it's not always the reality. And so it's really important for me to let parents know, and especially the mothers that are birthing, that they get to tune in and make those choices for themselves. As a birth doula, I am there to support them in whatever birth they want. So choices and then planning, right? Planning who's going to be on your birth team, right? Are you going to be working with a midwife? Are you going to be working with a doctor? Do you want your partner there? Do you want another family member? Do you want a doula? Do you, all of that? That takes planning of creating that birth team around you. And then we talk about the physical kind of training that needs to happen. Oftentimes birth has been equated to running a marathon. And I often ask, like, would you run a marathon without any training? Probably not. So why walk into a birth, environment without any training whatsoever? So we talk a bit about the physical training and also the mindset. It is said that 90% of birth happens in our mindset, what we believe we're capable of and what we believe about birth. And for me, birth is something very natural. A female body was created to be able to carry a child and birth a child. And it's just knowing that and trusting that, right? We go back to that trust that we have with children in Montessori, but it's trusting ourselves, trusting our body, and trusting our baby, because birthing is a collaborative teamwork, right? It's both the baby and mom doing a lot of that work. So then we also talk about postpartum. Postpartum is that period right after birth. There's going to be a lot of different physical things happening. There's also maybe some mood disorders that might come on because of hormones. And then I want to talk a lot about the symbiosis period that we talk a lot about in our assistance to infancy trainings, is those first 40 days of how important that period is for secure attachment, for feeling like you are welcomed and you are wanted, and that this is a world that you can thrive in, right? That you have that trust in the world. So that is really important. I also like to, bring in the partner and talk about their role, because they have a very important role. And I'll get into that. And then again, the team, that birth team that we want to create around ourselves. We can talk also about nesting activities, right? There's some beautiful Montessori infant toys that we could be making and creating, or finding friends that make them or buying them and such. But those are kind of activities that we would normally do. So I like to bring in some of the Montessori activities, even of making your own tamponcino, which is infant security pillow that we use. And then really looking at our home, right? That environment for the young child, how important that is. And so I really want to help parents become aware of that. And I'll be honest with you, when we are preparing for birth, parents are not yet in that sensitive period to understand the importance of the home environment. So I usually wait till after the birth to really talk more in depth about that because they're so focused on this, this transition of birthing that all of that that comes afterwards is a little foggy. And then, of course, I share a lot about Montessori's, parenting insights with them about the fine motor and gross motor development of their child, the language development, and so forth. So, one of the also aspects of that I learned in my Montessori training is this idea of using the autogenic respiratory training. And this was a training that was done in Italy by a Dr. Umberto Piccelli, and I think I'm butchering the pronunciation, but he worked closely with Dr. Montanaro, and Dr. Montanaro, as we know, is a was the woman who brought assistance to infancy to the United States, who worked closely with Dr. Maria Montessori. She was a pediatrician herself, and she worked closely with this doctor to, and it's often called RAT. That's why I have it here. I just changed the the sequence of the words because I have a hard time talking about RAT when I'm talking to birthing families. So art sounds just a little bit better. But anyway, so the art method really involves this idea that we are training ourselves to relax in a way that is similar to a deep sleep, and we help the birthing parent get into that state so that when they are in the throes of labor, they can stay in that relaxed state. So it's a beautiful 8 session different meditations where we learn to kind of get into a deep relaxation. And further on, we learn to be able to stay in that deep relaxation, even though, I'm clapping really loud, kind of pretending that those are uterine contractions. So a beautiful training that is still used in Europe, hasn't made its way to the United States yet, but yeah, it's somewhat similar to what we hear hypnobirthing, which is another technique to help parents stay relaxed that uses a lot more visualization. This one is really about just tuning into your body and staying in a very relaxed state. And this photo is me training a few of the guides in San Diego a few years ago. So um, okay, so let's get into birth preparation, right? We have, let's say, 8 weeks. So that's what I like to work with. And so here we're going to help the parents understand their own anatomy, which sometimes they don't know or haven't really, pondered the question. So we really want to talk about, what is the uterus? Why is it doing what it's going to do? What is the cervix? And the all of the pelvis bones and all of that is very important to understand if we're going to take control of our own birth. So anatomy and physiology is very important, and we talk a lot about a physiological birth, which is the natural process of birth when there are no interventions. We talk about the embryonic and the fetal development, right? Because the pregnant person, that is the first environment of this unborn child. And when we understand that and we know what is going on, we tend to be a lot maybe attentive to our health, attentive to both our physical health and our psychological health. So, very important to have parents kind of tune in to all of that information. And then, of course, I'll talk a lot about kind of some physical exercise and stretching and such that you can do to prepare your body to birth is in an easy way. And all of these, we always start with the art meditations. What I was talking about, the autogenic respiratory training. I'll spend, an hour doing that relaxation. I usually do it where both parents are relaxed. Dads, you usually love this, and I want them to also learn this so that they can repeat it and redo it at home as many times as possible. So then week 2, we go over the stages of labor and delivery. And this to me is very important for parents to understand the whole process of when labor starts, right? It's not like in the movies where, suddenly there's a gush of water and off you go to the hospital. It can look very different for many different people. It can start on slowly for a few days. There's yes, there's fluid, there's a mucus plug, there's all sorts of things that can happen. So without getting into all the details, those are things though that with my clients, I do really get into detail where I want them to understand all of the different things that might happen. Not everyone, experiences birth the same way. So I just want them to be aware of all the different ways. And then again, I talk a lot about nutrition, of being conscientious of what you're putting in your body is also going to your baby, and having good nutrition, good habits. And also, there's research, for example, that if a woman eats dates, 6 dates a day, I think it is towards the end, it helps, soften the cervix, things like that. So I try to share as much of that information as possible. Then we go into breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, kind of the fundamentals of lactation, what is actually happening to my body. And, that's a whole topic of its own. To me, it's fascinating how the body knows that we are pregnant, knows that we're going to need to feed somebody in 9 months, and that actually, lactation starts when we at conception, but doesn't really go into full production until we have delivered the placenta, which to me it's kind of mind-blowing of how wise our body is. So I do share a lot about that. And then the weaning process, and weaning is not necessarily to stop breastfeeding, but it's more the introduction of solid and how we do it the Montessori way of, having the weaning table and really making the sharing of a meal a very social, loving kind of process, right? And that to me is very important to start those kind of habits and routines early on, because that is going to be the foundation for the rest of your family life and parenting. And, with my European background, for me, family meals is a no-brainer, and I have them every day, and it's very important for the health of the family, for the health of our children. And so if we start early on, those are things that we'll be used to it from that early stage. Then I like to talk about the role of, again, the symbiosis period, as I was talking about that very important time where we are recuperating from the birth experience, where we are trying as much as possible to sleep and rest when baby is sleeping. And this is true for the birthing mother. And to feed and stay close to your baby, a lot of skin to skin, because baby needs you and you need baby to have that secure attachment, to know that you are there for each other. So very, very important. And then learning to observe our baby, right? Observation is one of the most important tools that we have in our Montessori training. So I really want to help parents understand how to be that scientific observer, how to be able to take a step back without judgment, without preconceived ideas, but just watch your baby, observe and observe yourself, your reactions, and the environment of how you can possibly tweak it for them. Then I, of course, talk a lot about just the postpartum care for, both mom and baby, and of course, dad, and as well as the role of the father. So the role of the parenting partner. And here it is a role of protection. It is a role of really protecting the symbiosis period, right? So that, really letting the mom rest as much as possible, finding your own routine with baby and bonding time. There's plenty of things, you could massage, give bath, go on walk, sing, read a book, whatever is like, whatever that routine you already have, like include your baby in. And again, learn to observe your baby. Very important aspect of that. And really, the role here is to be the protector of the mother and child bonding. And also doing skin to skin. Like I always invite dads to do skin to skin, even as early as at birth, if mommy is tired or maybe it was a cesarean and she's recuperating. Like I try to get dads to do skin to skin right away as soon as they can. And here I'll take a break to read you a quote from Dr. Montanaro, who wrote Understanding the Human Being. We should not look at newborn infants as small, helpless human beings, but as persons who are small in size, but with an immense mental capacity and many physical abilities that cannot be witnessed unless the environment assists in the expression of life. And this to me, I mean, I even get shivers reading it. It's really the essence of Montessori parenting and working with infants as Montessorians. We know that 85% of brain growth is going to happen during those first 3 years. So it is our duty to help these children. But, these children are in the home. So it is important for us to be able to share this information with parents as much as possible. I wish all schools had kind of these classes for, expecting parents. There's often, one or two or three families that are expecting and being able to bring them into our Montessori world as early as possible it would be really wonderful. Then week 5, we're going to talk more specifically about preparing the home. And this, it might sound silly, but I even invite parents to sit on the floor and observe the environment from what their child's perspective is going to be, or to crawl around their home so that they can adapt it in a way so that we have that yes environment, right? Where we can give the child the a way to explore safely. This is now their home. And so they need to be able to explore safely. They need to be able to move on their own terms and such. And so we just need to adapt it a little bit. I often, think of if you're having a house guest who is maybe an elderly aunt who walks with a walker, for example, you're probably going to rearrange your home a little bit. You're going to move some furniture out of the way. You're going to make sure that she feels welcome and that she has everything she needs. Well, it's the same thing for a child that we are welcoming into our home. They're just going to be a guest that's going to stay for a bit longer, but we need to adapt it. And, I always like to remind parents that this is temporary. This is just for, a few weeks, a few months, a few years, depending on their stage of development. But it goes very fast those first 3 years. So being always observing so that you can really adapt the environment for that child. We talk about that, furniture and more, I should probably put contraptions or what the baby industry would like us to have. There are so many gadgets out there that are totally unnecessary and that hinder our child's physical development. So, a rule of thumb is anything that you need to put your child in that they can't get in and out of on their own is probably not the best, except for the car seat, and the stroller possibly. But all of the, exercisers and all those things, we know as Montessorians that those are not beneficial to our children. But to explain that to families who don't have our background, it can be hard because the baby industry, wants us to buy all the latest, greatest gadgets. Now they even have beds that shush and shake babies and all sorts of things. So, and again, here nesting activities, we can spend some time doing that. I've also have groups of parents when I do these in groups that come together and we make some of these together. And that is a wonderful way for new parents to also start their village and bond with other parents. We can have fathers. I've had a dad make the weaning table and chair, for example, and that was really wonderful. Then we have, why isn't it? Hmm. Sorry about that. Then we have week 6 and when I say, the numbers of the weeks, I'm flexible. Sometimes I've had families who, want to talk about the role of the father in week 2. So I move things around, but these are kind of the general topics that we talk about after that hour of relaxation. So here it's the importance of the development of movement. And I think this is a really big one, at least from, the Montessori perspective, is to really trust that the child is going to develop their fine and gross motor skills on their own timeline, and that it is up to us to prepare the environment for them to be able to do it freely. I mean, when we think of it, human evolution, we can see it within those 12 months, right? We have a child who is an aquatic being in utero, and then kind of a little reptile, and then gets up on all fours, and then, at first slithers, then gets up on all fours, sits up like a primate, and then finally is standing like a human being. All this within 12 months. And all this can happen freely and naturally when we prepare the environment and we do not constrain them. And I think it's really important for parents to understand that. I talk a lot about clothing and shoes that might hamper or hinder that development of movement, right? Sometimes we want to put on a cute little outfit, but the child can't really move in it, or little dresses for girls who are just starting to crawl, it gets in their way, things like that. Just to be thinking, to be aware, and that through observation we'll also see that as well. Shoes are another one where there are things have evolved. Like I have a 29-year-old. I was told, very stiff shoes that hold the ankle and all this. Today we say very soft shoes, barefoot as much as possible, and all of that. So these things evolve and change, but it's important to share all that with parents. And then I do a little bit of infant care, so bathing the infant, changing diapers, taking care of the umbilical cord and such. For example, Saturday I'm meeting with a young couple who's expecting, and they really want me to show them how to diaper, show them how to take care of their baby because they've never been around babies. And so it's important to give parents these lessons, right? That we can share all of that with them. And then we have the last week is kind of the week of, well, not the week before last, but again, it's about the development of language. To me, we have so many resources as Montessorians to help families understand how language develops, and that if we do not offer language to our children, language will not develop. So the importance of talking to our babies from day one. They are so ready to hear you. They've been hearing voices in utero. They recognize your voice. So it's very important to let them know what you're doing. Uh, Give them a tour of the house when you come home. Let them know where you're going, what you're seeing, and such. And that is starting to fire up all those neurons, just waiting to be fired up. So very important. I have a big issue with screens, as some of you might also. So that is definitely a conversation I have. And it's becoming, more and more apparent to me that this is a generation that has grown up with screens. So to kind of change the mindset of having a screen around is different. Just last night, I was at a prenatal visit. Dad was on his phone the entire time. I mean, he was paying attention, but he was doing also something else on the phone. And for me, that is really something that we are going to have to consider once our children are around, because we know that our children learn from watching us, and no wonder they always want to take our phone and have it with them. And then this whole idea of, background noise, having the television on, for example, satisfies our need for communication, but then we're not really talking and interacting with the baby. So those are things that I think are really important to share with parents to be and new parents. And also the how to have a bilingual language environment. More and more families that I work with are speaking different, languages, and I think it's really important to encourage our families to speak their mother tongue to their children. And then lastly, that last week is really reviewing labor and delivery, kind of all the different stages, what to expect, to practice all of the different positions and pushing techniques that are going to be really important, so that mother and father feel prepared to, make this an amazing day, amazing experience. And then, we try to plan a reunion for babies a few months down the road. Uh, so then again, a quote that to me is, speaks to what we do, is that formerly it was thought that the small child had no psychic life, whereas now we realize that the only part of him which is active during the first year is the brain. And this is active from the moment they are born. I mean, it is active in utero, but I have the immense privilege to be present at births and to see these newborns, some of them, open their eyes and they're looking at you, and you can just see that psychic life like just poof come online, which is quite amazing. So it is really magical. And this is just a last slide to remind us of, I think, the important work that we do as Montessorians and how we can share this with parents, right? This idea of observation and observing with love, that we observe ourselves, we observe the child, we observe the environment, and is this continuous ebb and flow of how we can really be there for the child and guide them to have the best possible life and to have a healthy attachment, secure attachment, and to feel well in this world. So and just a reminder also that all of this, is to really um, give the child the basic needs that they need, because we know that there are, six fundamental basic needs for the young child, and that is love and security. So that what I talked about of having the trust in the world, movement. So that's why we want to look at the home environment, language. So that's really human communication, being able to interact, independence. We know that our children want to be able to do things on their own. And this starts very, very early on when they are reaching for something, right? So letting them have that discovery and that confidence. And then firm and kind limits. So this is really that, what we talked about in Montessori is it's freedom within limits. So it's really knowing what your limits are in your home and knowing how to instill them with firmness and kindness. And then lastly, the sense of order that we know is so important in the young child, right? They're in that sensitive period for order. It also helps the families if there is a sense of order, a sense of ritual, of rhythm in our lives. So that concludes. And this, I was told to put at the end if you want to receive your certificate for attendance. Um, and I will stop sharing. And if you have any questions, I am here for you.
Oh my goodness, I've been jotting down ideas.
Oh, good.
Uh,
Yes, because new grandma, you have this
yes,
is
I
this is
have
a
big
whole
work.
new world for you. It's
That's right.
wonderful.
I
Yeah.
have big work ahead.
Yeah.
So
That's
exciting. And I am watching the chat. I've encouraged folks, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or drop a note in the chat. If I see, oh, Heather White says, what a wonderful presentation and with so much great information. She's wondering if you know of any other uses for art slash rat in the world of Montessori or beyond.
so yes, I mean, it was used and developed with doctors. So this doctor in Italy that I mentioned, but there was another one for kind of, also surgery or traumatic experiences. So to really help people come into this real state of relaxation. And we used to do it every day during our training. And this is when I trained in Denver, Colorado with Judy Orion. And we would start the day with everybody's lying on the floor and we do our session, which lasted very small amount of time, and we had this kind of classical piece that had been joined to it. And I remember that sometimes I would go home and just listen to the classical piece and it would put me in a kind of a deep relaxation. So it's a wonderful training. I know that in Denver they still train people to use it. I have yet to see it be used like in the birthing world, kind of general. It's more like a Montessori secret. But yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
fantastic.
And Heather, thank you. She's the one that reached out and invited me. So I have to say thank you for that. Very much so.
Heather was also commenting that she was thinking about how the art or rap might work with a group of children to set the tone for a peaceful day.
Definitely, definitely. That would be, it probably would need to be adapted a little bit, but it could definitely even be, I remember in the school I worked in, nap time was always kind of,
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
So maybe starting with something like that where we're training ourselves because it's really a simple kind of body scan that
Right.
we do, but we're training ourselves. So once we have those tools, we can use them anytime. So I think that's a great idea, Heather. So
Yeah, I think it's
I have yet to see it used with the children, but great idea.
well, and you bring up such a great point is that I know in my years of experience, we just kind of expect kids to know how to take a nap. But in thinking about it, I know that in all my years of practice, we've never intentionally guided children to nap time and facilitated our
Yeah,
expectations around nap.
so true, so true. And sleep, infant sleep is one of the biggest issues I hear, with parents.
Yes.
And we don't advise any sort of, quote unquote training until at least 6 months of age. But just to say that sleep is a learned behavior, right? So we need, again, to create an environment, to create structure, to create a routine and order so that the child knows what is expected of them.
Yeah.
So important. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and even for adults, so often
exactly.
I'm
Hmm.
just thinking about my, I'll in self-disclosure, it's just, okay, it's that time. I'm exhausted. Let me just fall into bed. But wouldn't it be wonderful if I had I still have time to create a plan.
Yes, yes.
And I'm sure that would lead to much more restful
Mm,
sleep
mm,
because, as
mm.
you say, sleep is essential to our body's functioning.
It
Yeah,
is. It is.
that good deep sleep.
Mm,
Restorative sleep, right?
mm.
All right, I'm watching the chat, folks. We're so glad you were here tonight. And Jeanne-Marie, thank you so much for your wisdom and your sharing.
You're
Uh,
very welcome.
Zafira says thank you. This was very informative. I quite agree. I learned so much tonight.
Good, good. And
Yes.
if you want to, have more conversation or reach out, my website is yourparentingmentor.com. So
Mhm.
yourparentingmentor.com. I have some free downloads and things, and there's a contact form like if you want more information or such. So yes, thank you for putting that. Yes. Um, so yeah, and it's as you probably can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this topic. So so
Well, I'm
yes,
glad
thank
you
you. Thank
are.
you for having me.
I'm so glad you are because I've learned so much tonight, just on a selfish level. And our university president thanks you for the presentation as well. Great information. If you're in Michigan, I know Dr. Levins is. I hope you all stay warm and that the snow is kind to you. Again, Jean-Marie, thank you. And I know I'll be checking out your website, yourparentingmentor.com. Again, thank you. And thank you again to Heather for coordinating our colloquium sessions. We meet the third Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock Central Time. So hopefully we'll see everyone back here again next week. And Jean-Marie, know that the door is always open to you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank
Bye,
you.
you too.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everybody.
Good night.